Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And today I have a very special video for you all because I had the honor to sit down with legendary artist Shannon Maer. He's done incredible work and covers for characters like Harley Quinn, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Mystique. And now he's throwing his name into the writer and sequential art category as well with his new book, Siren's Gate by Dynamite Publishing, an urban fantasy tale about an aspiring writer who is thrust into the supernatural world of werewolves and vampires. I really hope you enjoy this Creator Corner with Shannon Maer. All right, well, I am with Shannon Maer. Shannon, thank you so much for hopping on the channel today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. It's funny on my channel here. We talk a lot about comic book collecting and that sort of thing. But I was personally really introduced to you first. Probably I came across your work in like 2019 because you drew this incredible Sylvanas Windrunner, and I have a very soft place in my heart for video game stuff. So as much as I love your comic book art, and we're going to talk about your comic book work, I'm very a big fan of your video game stuff as well. So this is very exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I forget about that sometimes. We got Becky cheering in the background.
Yeah, I was super playing WoW at the time, so
yeah,
like he was saying a lot of Sylvanas. So yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. That one stood out to me. And since then, I've obviously become more versed in your background and your work, and you've done incredible stuff for, all the characters that we know: Harley Quinn, Daredevil, Spider-Man, et cetera, et cetera. But Shannon, maybe for those who don't know, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, how you got your start, and what you do.
Well, I guess we got the name Shannon Maer. I've been cover artist for some time for Marvel, DC, Dynamite, and numerous other properties. And I guess we're here today because started my own comic series. Finally decided to roll up my sleeves and dive in and do my own writing and interiors for the first time. It was quite a project to take on. I thought about it for many years, and I was like, well, it's time. Let's do this.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna jump into that. Before I get there, before we can dub you the artist/writer, I did want to ask about your art background. Like, how did you get your start? Because you have such a unique style, and you've kind of been really celebrated in the variant cover space recently. So how did you kind of start your art work, and then how did you get kind of pulled into comic books and doing variant covers?
Originally, I was strictly an oil paint artist. I went to school with a focus on doing book covers. Fantasy art, I'd say, was a primary focus for me. I just wanted to be able to do the fantastical colors and some surreal aspects of it. That's what really drew me to the genre. And I was always interested in digital. It wasn't popular at all or barely existent back then, and I was interested in delving into it, especially since it would be easier on my sinuses chemical wise, moving away from oil paint. And I wound up switching almost entirely over to working digitally, at least for my cover work and stuff like that. But it was important to me that switching from oil to digital, that I didn't want to feel like I was just losing something. So a lot of focus went into trying to maintain a lot of the feel of oil paint. And it's always funny when I was working in oil paint, the challenge was always to try to keep the canvas cleaner, smoother, because I had a focus on illustration, so I didn't want too much grit in it. And then when I switched over to digital, it was, well, now it's a little bit too clean. I want to make sure that I don't lose the brush strokes. I want some of that grit in there. So it was the opposite, and I wound up focusing a lot of energy trying to introduce that texture into the art.
Yeah, it really does show, and one of the things I think is really cool looking ahead when we talk about Siren's Gate is how immersive it feels because, like you said, the texture is there, like the three dimensionality. You really feel that, and you did a really good job kind of bringing that out in the digital space. And knowing that you come from oil painting, it very much shows, and it's really cool how you've kind of been able to, like you said, keep it feeling tangible and not so perfect in that way in terms of the texture. So it's really, really impressive. But I guess that's something that I think a lot of people will know you for is the 3D kind of style that you bring. But like, how did you kind of develop this style? And I guess going into, the variant cover work you do, maybe talk a little bit about that process, like how you sort of discovered, your version of what the 3D, kind of character model would look like.
Well, the final product winds up being a digital painting. When I worked in oil paint, I would have, I'd work from live models. They'd, come out and we do photo shoots and stuff like that. And it would be a lot of fun. But what I found was, like say Friday comes along and I got plans and I'm like, this weekend I'm painting a mermaid, and I have a model that's coming out and I'm all excited about working on it. And then I get a last minute cancellation and I don't have a model coming anymore. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to streamline this. And I started looking into more of the elaborate actual physical models. I know that in Japan, they were making some really intricate models for artists with excessive amounts of joints and the ability to pose them. It's really fantastic, but um, they were delicate to work with. And it became very frustrating. And then I was like, well, maybe I should start looking into how I can do this working with 3D models. So I went out looking and spending a lot of time looking for, a program that would be not overly complicated to use, kind of, quick to get in and get out. And get my base references for that so that, I can go into the painting anytime I wanted and I didn't have to rely on live models anymore. So I guess that was kind of the foundation for that part of the process.
And that's really, really awesome because, obviously the variant cover work has been incredible. And now you're kind of going into sequential art as well here with Siren's Gate. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this book that's coming out next week through Dynamite. How did this project come about? What was the inspiration for this idea? And maybe give us a little log line or summary of what it is.
Okay, so I guess a handful of years back, I did actually start writing a novel. And I would say that I got about, halfway through it. And the question that was always on my mind is, would I prefer this as a novel or as a graphic novel? And I think at a given point with it, I was having enough mixed feelings. I set it aside and didn't continue with it. And then when I decided to do my own graphic novel, that storyline, at least the base part of that, what was important to me, kept creeping into my mind, and that would have been the beginning part of this storyline. Did we want to go into the summary of Siren's Gate from
Yeah.
here? Okay.
Yeah, it's very exciting. You have the first issue number 1 coming out. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Okay. Well, I wanted it to be fun and enjoyable, and I wanted to be able to get into some of the, fantasy aspects of it. I definitely wanted to explore, the supernatural realm. So I wanted to have a lot of, I guess, freedom in this. And here's a little funny part. I'm also a little bit known for some of the, portraying beautiful women on some of my covers or a lot of my covers. And I wanted to be able to do that throughout the graphic novel. And some of the outfits might wind up being a little bit, scanty, a little scantily
Yeah.
clad. And
I'm sure there's going to be lots of people who, yeah, not fans of that. I'm sure who are comic book fans.
um, so in the story, in the environment, I'm like, setting what our main character's day job is. And I finally, like, it clicked. I'm like, she's a bartender at a strip club. That explains the outfits.
Right.
So, like, throughout the whole, premise, the whole storyline, um, I found that, I'm always able to put her in some, fun and playful outfits. And there's always a nice foundation and excuse for it. Um, I feel like I'm rambling here a bit.
No, I mean, and it's really great. It shows the level, of detail. You still, obviously you do tremendous work in the beauty space when you do your drawings with, often like females and stuff. And it was really cool to see it executed in the sequential sequence. I mean, maybe talk a little bit about like how that, what was that challenge? Because if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you're kind of diving in as
Oh,
both a
absolutely.
writer and doing sequential art, right? So how was that work different? And did you find yourself, having to kind of not spend as much time on every single panel that you do? I'm sure when you're working on your varying covers, like how were you able to get it all done? And what was that process like for you?
All right. Well, how I was going to get it done? That's a good question. Um, but interestingly, what I found was as I got deeper and deeper into the book, and I'd go back and I'd look through the pages, I found that I was putting too much detail in it. The way they would go from panel to panel, because all of the panels play together, so it becomes a single painting that way.
Right.
Um, so instead of viewing it as, all right, this panel, this is, like a cover. I'm doing a cover here, and then the next one, I really needed to look at them all together. So I found myself, reducing them down and reducing them down over time. So to say that one of the panels on the page might have a fair amount of detail in the background, well, then the other panels don't. Not only do they not need as much, it's important that they don't have as much, or it becomes overwhelming. And
Mm,
that's what I started to feel on it. Um, I wanted the book to mimic my cover work. I wanted it to not feel like, well, he's doing a different style now or a simplified style. It was very important to me that, the cover matched the interiors. Um, uh, People have been asking, for years about it. Like, well, could you do that? It would be awesome if the whole book, looked like the covers. And I was like, well, let me see if I can do that. Um, did I
yeah.
answer the?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think people will look forward to it. I was like very much, you know, I felt like the art style was very much your cover work, like page after page, which was really, really impressive to see that. And I think you definitely succeeded at that. And one of the things I thought was so interesting too was just how immersive it felt. We were talking about the textures with like the oil painting from your background, and seeing that and like the three dimensionality of every single page was really cool to see. And even I don't know if this is teasing too much, but even the way that you chose to do the lettering, I felt like was very immersive for the story style as well. Like, was that something that you thought about or had discussions around?
Oh, the lettering. I mean, I wound up actually very excited about that. And early on, with, I guess, promoing the book with Dynamite, um, I kept remarking about the lettering, because I think I was
Mhm.
pretty excited about that. I wouldn't have assumed that might have been one of the things I was most excited about. And when I started working on this, I was like, well, where do I begin? And where do I begin? And um, I started page one. So I started working on the first page, and I got, I guess, my characters in there, my environment. I got the scene going, And I'm like, well, I got to get some of the dialogue in there. So it was, feeling it out all together. So it was a learning process for me, and filling out exactly, I guess, the style, how detailed I want to be. Am I going to be a little bit grittier, for the interiors than my cover work? So I had all of these questions that I was working on, and I was like, okay, well, let me get some of the dialogue in. And I didn't even think about it. I finished the page, and then I looked back and I realized that without even, I guess, thinking about it, I had put the dialogue into dimension within the scene. So
Right.
with the characters, it just apparently just felt right to me. And then I was looking at it and I was like, am I allowed to do that? Um,
Yeah.
has anybody done it like that before? I don't know, and I'm like, and I got that question of, am I allowed to do that? And I'm like, I'm allowed to, well, I'm
Just
just,
breaking the rules that, the lettering commission was like, no, you're
yeah,
not allowed to do this.
well, like, certain protocols. What is it supposed to look like? And
Yeah.
I think I felt a little bit more freedom after that. Just like, no, I don't want it to look specifically like anything. I just want to do what comes natural to me, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was I thought it worked really well, and to your point, it felt like, you know, it, knowing that you kind of were thinking about it at least a little bit as you were drawing, it felt like a part of the page itself. It was very, very deliberate, and I thought it worked really nice. And it's very cool to see that, because it not only do you have your unique style, but it does really feel like you're kind of pushing the storytelling forward in a different way, or kind of exploring like a different execution altogether for the comic, which I think is very, very cool, and was really enjoyable to see that.
Thank you.
But I did want to ask about the cover itself. Obviously, you spend a lot of time doing variant covers, and you have, of course, a bunch of different covers that you did for this issue as well. Did you put like kind of extra pressure on yourself that you're doing the cover for your own book, like this has got to be your
Oh,
greatest cover you've ever done? Like
oh,
what was that process like?
that was tough.
Mm,
So I was probably about 3/4 of the way through the first issue. And I was really, I think I was getting a little bit worn down, and I felt like I kind of needed a break, but I also didn't want to take a break. Um, and I kept throughout the whole process, kept thinking about, well, the cover, what's the cover going to be like for this? And I was like, you know what, my break will be switching from the interiors and the story, to working on the cover. So I started working on the cover, and I think I did it kind of quickly, which wasn't bad because I got an overall feel for it very quickly, and I felt like I didn't finish it. And then I went back to the story. I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with the idea for that. I'm comfortable with the direction that I wanted to take, at least for the main cover. And I switched back to the regular story. And that was the cover that I had when I went out, looking, for a publisher, for the comic. Um, and I felt that the interiors and everything were, pretty much done. And the cover, I felt like, was halfway done. But I thought it was time um, to get out there and reach out to like Dynamite and see if, maybe they'd want to take this on. Um, so then after, we signed on with that, then I had to go back to the cover, and I was able to focus like the majority of my efforts on the cover. And now I just felt like, well, it really needs to be perfect because this
yeah.
is my cover. And then I was
Yeah.
also worried I'm going to overwork this.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's going to be like one of my worst covers if I do that. And I think I might have started that way, and I was overworking it, and then I kind of had to go back to it and then just take a fresh look. And I think maybe the third time through, it was like, no, this is good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it definitely lives up to, the I would say the quality level and the bar that you've set for yourself. It's really awesome. And I know, I think people always appreciate this. Obviously, from your variant work, people always appreciate sort of the beautiful depictions of the heroes or females or whatever it is. But I think for the people who
Strong,
watch this channel,
empowered women. It's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
women for the
But
covers. It's always important that I portray them, very, very well.
yeah,
And
but people on this channel will definitely appreciate it. They always like it when the characters who are in the comic book, especially for the very first time on the #1 issue, are also on the cover. I know that people will appreciate that as well, from a collecting standpoint. Um, but so I guess I kind of wanted to ask too. I mean, this as I gather, and maybe you can give us a little bit of a preview. This issue 1 is coming out next week. This a sort of aspiring kind of writer meets one of their big heroes, their big idols, and that kind of brings them into this supernatural sort of world. Where do you kind of see the story going, or what's kind of next for the story? Is it going to be a mini series here, or are we looking to do some ongoing stuff? Like, where do you kind of see it going in the future?
well, where it stands right now, is I'm looking at it as like a season. So I'm committed to approximately a handful of issues. Um, do I or do we, wish to continue it after that? I guess, we will feel that out as we go along. So what I wanted to do was view it as a season that, it can certainly be an ongoing series. Um, but I wanted to have kind of a conclusion, or at least a fair climax in the development. So it feels like a season 1 finale. So that's what I'm set to accomplish within a handful of issues. And then, we'll take it from there if we want to have, season 2 and continue on from there. But that is how the story is currently designed to flow.
Well, very, very, very cool. So Sirens Gate #1 comes out next week. Are you? What's your plan? Are you gonna take a trip down to your LCS, buy your own book? I mean, got any celebrations lined up, or any signings that maybe people will be able to find you at soon?
Well, I would absolutely be running out to my local comic shop, except I will be at New York Comic Con. So the debut of this book coincides with New York Comic Con, so we'll be having signings there. Becky?
But on October 14th at our local comic book store in Watertown, Connecticut, you will be doing a signing at Infinite Heroes.
Okay. Yeah, I can remember all that if you want to announce it. So there will be a signing. Becky, do you want to sit forward?
Infinite Heroes Comics in Watertown, Connecticut on October 14th from 5 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Well, very, very cool. Well, awesome that you're going to be at New York Comic Con. Great that the book comes out at that time. Obviously, if you're someone out there watching and you're a fan of Shannon, definitely go pick up a Sirens Gate #1. Shannon, if they can't find you at New York Comic Con, where can the people find you, maybe online, or to look forward to what you have next?
The best place to find me is on Facebook. I'm most interactive there. So I have an art page, Shannon Maer -artist. So that is the #1 place to find me. I'm also on Instagram. I use Twitter a little bit, but Facebook primarily. And for New York Comic Con, I will be with the Comic Mint, and the Comic Mint will also have an exclusive cover for Sirens Gate available. And I believe we will have the main covers and all of that. Yes, Becky's confirming. So the main solicit will also be at our booth with the Comic Mint.
Very, very cool. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for hopping on the channel today and having this conversation with me. Congratulations on Sirens Gate. It looks amazing. Can't wait to pick up my copy. And yeah, hopefully we see more of it in the future.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.